the world. I'm here for it live with special guest Christina Farinacci Roberts.
Robert.
And this is my final here for it live today. We did quite of a marathon, and we can talk about that if you would like. But I really want to talk about you and talk about how awesome you are. I want to circle back to like when we first connected. Like I don't know if it was during COVID, before COVID, or what. But anyway, tell everybody who you are and what you do. You do amazing things. So like what's your pitch? What do you like, what's your 5-minute little elevator spiel thing that you tell people like when they say, what do you do?
This question gets so complicated and I try to make it simple. So I always say, my name is Christina Farinacci Roberts. I am the founder and chief catalyst officer of Head, Heart, Hands Consulting. I say that I'm a veteran educator by trade, a former New York City high school principal turned education and equity entrepreneur. And really, I'm just on a massive mission to create a more just, equitable, and flourishing world. And I want to help people essentially weave their personal essence with their professional excellence to achieve greater freedom, fulfillment, and flow. Does that work?
Yes. I mean, I love it. But tell me, like, really get into the root of like, what does it mean to make education more equitable? Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm. So everything in all places. My foundation is in the education space. That's where I spent, 2 decades. It wasn't until, so short bio basically is I was a teacher in Brooklyn. I was a principal in Brooklyn. I came back upstate after I got married, continued to be in leadership. And then 5 years ago, my Korean immigrant tiger mom was diagnosed with the beginning stages of Alzheimer's. Knock on wood, to God be the glory. It's been a very slow progression. She's as healthy and happy as I could want her to be. But that was that her condition and my son being almost 2, that sandwich generation challenge kind of had me leaning into like, okay, this is not going to be sustainable. And I really want to be able to have a little bit more autonomy over my time. And I want to focus on my family. And I literally stepped out in faith. I let my board know they had to find a replacement. I'm like, I don't have another job lined up. I don't have a plan B. I do still have a mortgage for which I am a primary breadwinner in my house. And so I was like, I'm going to start a consulting company. Put it on, of course, social media. An old colleague from Brooklyn offered to hire me to be an instructional coach 3 days a month. It was, I joke, it was the manna from heaven. It was just enough. It was just enough for my mortgage and my car payment and literally nothing else.
And for you to get a little taste, right? A little taste of what it feels like to kind of have the power to do whatever it is you want.
Oh, I mean, that's like, for me, it was amazing. Like, I'm like, oh, like I can actually provide for myself, like outside of the man or an organization giving me a paycheck every 2 weeks. Right. And over the course of the next 4 months, there was a change of leadership. He wound up leaving, going back to the DOE, and they needed more support. And so my 3 days wound up becoming 8 days a month. And I literally out-earned my principal salary in my first full year of entrepreneurship.
Wow.
And just, as a business owner, and if anybody out there is a consultant or a coach, it can be very feast or famine. First few years, literally just, it was a feast. But I knew a famine could come, and I was, responsible. I was a good steward of my resources. And that moment came when the pandemic hit, and literally my business went to zero. I was on the phone with unemployment, like on hold for hours at a time just to, get something in the door. And it took 6 grueling months. And I recognized it could have taken way longer, but it was enough for me to feel the burn. It took 6 grueling months for me to pivot and profit. Wound up partnering with my best friend since 2nd grade. She's a former corporate health and wellness executive. And we wound up, I had told you, we created a little pretend podcast. Our small mighty subscribership of 10 people happened to have one global head of people for a legal services company. She wanted some wellness work. She wanted some diversity, equity, and inclusion work. Asked if we would partner. I said, this is genius. Let's create a wide framework where we integrate wellness, inclusion, diversity, and equity and promote greater individual and organizational flourishing. So long route back to your original question of like, what does this all look like? So I right now essentially work with 3 categories of folks. first I have my executives that are in the corporate space, and I define corporate broadly. It doesn't have to be for profit. Like nonprofits can be also corporate if they have larger number of employees. It's really, we're thinking of it in terms of scale. And then I also work with educators, right? So I work with schools and school districts. And then more recently, within the last year, I have also started to work with other entrepreneurs and helping them figure out what are the ways that they can take their intellectual capital and leverage that over the human capital. Because when you sell yourself, you are essentially limited. You're exchanging time for money. So you only have a certain amount of hours in a day, and you can only be present and show up a certain amount of time. Whereas you start to build out more intellectual capital, you can start getting paid even when you're not the one showing up, or even when you're not there at all, because it's on, some evergreen platform or something like that. So executives, educators, entrepreneurs, that is essentially who I work with. And I can do anything from, I just yesterday got a request for executive coaching. So I can do like one-on-one coaching with folks. I can come in, help you build a strategic plan. I can come in, help you do team building. I love the Enneagram. I'm obsessed. I build that into team building and just leadership development if that, tickles someone's fancy. So yeah, workshops, speaking engagements, like whatever you need, I got something for you.
Yeah, well, I think that that sounds like, like how can she be everything to everything? And that's not what you're saying. You have like a framework that you work around, and you're basically just you repackage it to be applicable to the client that shows up and says, I want to work with you.
Real life examples. So I have my soul leadership model. And then the model has two frameworks. I have an optimized framework and I have an ascend framework. But just high level, what is soul leadership? Why would you want it in your life, in your organization? I really, essentially when you have the zone of genius and you are in business, you're trying to figure out how do you codify the thing that's natural to you. And for me, I'm such a holistic and human-centered person. And I was like, how can I package this in a particular way? One of the things that I always like to remind my entrepreneur clients of is I lived and breathed my framework before I ever put pen to paper. So it's like, we all kind of have a framework. You just probably haven't taken the time to write it down and think about how it should be organized and whatever. But what is now my Ascend framework, I used to call it Head, Heart, Hands framework, hence where my company name came from. And I used a Head, Heart, Hands approach in the classroom when I was a teacher. And then when I was a principal, I still use that Head, Heart, Hands framework, but I was using it with not just children, I was using it with adults. And then when I started to do my consulting business, I was still using Head, Heart, Hands. And again, in the beginning, I was only working with schools and educators. So the language around it was very tailored and structured to you as a teacher or a principal. But as I made that pivot into the corporate space, I thought about like, well, part of what the Ascend framework assumes is that in order for an individual and an organization to flourish, you're going to enlighten the head, engage the heart, empower the hands. And you have to have that combination. And I talk about as leaders, we're some combination of all three of those things, but we tend to have a default mode, right? So if you're a head person, you are looking at data, theory, stats, numbers, research. That is the way you enter into the work. It's the lens. These leadership stars are like the lens through which you see the world and how you navigate it and how you process the information and identify the problems and develop the solutions. So if you're a head person, you're doing it that way. If you're a heart person, it's not that you don't care about those things. Obviously, those are real things. We need to have a strategic plan and things like that, but it's not what drives you. You're more driven by what's the personal transformation? What's the community impact? How does this help my team dynamic to, achieve our mission and vision? And then if you're a hands person, you're coming at it from a perspective of what's the tactical support that needs to be in place so that we can shift from theory to practice and actually go and implement this initiative. And they all have their pros and cons. They all have their glows and grows. And so as a leader, I always say I'm a heart person by default, but my head is right there. It's second place, just by a hair. Cause I'm vision and strategy, but I also have that mission and heart focus. And then in the hands, I'm can I do it? yes, I can, but I'm like, that feels less fun to me because I've exhausted all my brain power on coming up with the vision and the strategy. And then I'm like, here, hands, you go, it's your turn. And those hands people love that. Like a hands person will take my mission and my vision and the strategic plan and be like, this is gold, let's run and make it happen. I would assume that's a little bit like you and Marcella, right? She's definitely a hands person. Like she will go and like execute on the thing that you need her to execute. So yeah, that's kind of like big picture on the Ascend framework. But the whole idea of soul leadership was to say, when I looked back at even in my career as an educator, where you would be like, oh, in the education space, it should be like all rainbows and butterflies. Nope. The schools are some of the most toxic places you can walk into.
Yeah.
Okay. Like go to the teacher's lounge at lunch or a happy hour right after, and you'll hear all kinds of crazy. And a lot of times rightfully so. But between that and then even in the corporate space, I just feel like there's a lot of toxicity. There's a lot of hierarchy, patriarchy, right? There's this scarcity mindset. There's this sense that like, I can only win if you lose. And so it's like dog eat dog world. It's, climb to the top and throw as many other people down versus like, let me be climbing up with one hand and pulling somebody else up as I'm going. And so wanting to, think more like collaboration over competition.
What? Oh my God. It's like like I say, that's what we
no,
like along so well.
The Palette community is really the embodiment of soul leadership, right? So the 4 elements of soul, first is S, is satisfaction. I don't think we pay enough attention to satisfaction because people will live their whole lives, check all of the boxes, get to the quote unquote promised land and be like, I am not even happy here. And I don't know why I'm here other than somebody told me this was the path. Right. And so allowing yourself to, I want to increase people's like pride, joy, fulfillment in the work that they do in the lives that they live. The O for optimism is really about improving your outlook on what's possible and your capacity to rise and excel and really having that belief. And then the U is for Uberty. And for anybody who's out there who's like, I don't know what that is. I didn't know what it was either until I was looking for a set of U words that could possibly be in my acronym. And I found out that Uberty means, it's an antiquated word for abundance. I'm trying to revive it into the lexicon. Help me out, folks. But this is really about embodying a spirit of abundance and assuming that there is provision for whatever is needed. And a little bit of that too is like, what's for me is for me and whatever's for you is for you. So like even if we're in the same space, even if we do the same thing, I am never looking at you as like conventional competition, even though yes, technically you're a competitor. Cause I'm like, the people who want to work with me are not the same people who want to work with you. And that's a good thing because I can't be all things to all people and neither can you. So again, embodying that spirit of abundance. And then the last little element of, this is the L for love. And this is about like igniting your passion and purpose and rooting it in the most universal element of the human condition, right? Which is love. Like, and I think I had a lot of people push back on me when I like came up with this concept and I was talking about what I wanted to do with it. And they were like, soul, love, like these are words like we don't want to use in like the professional space.
Yeah.
And I feel like now more than ever with the triple threat of right, the global pandemic, the economic downturn, all these social justice issues, like if you are not highlighting and reinforcing people's humanity and like I can't think of a more motivating factor for any of the good things that have happened in the world that aren't connected to a love of someone, something, some place, some cause, some purpose, like that the love literally makes the world go round. So why not leverage it to make yourself better and to make the people around you better? So that's a high level. And then the small piece that I'll put the pin on is the optimized framework is actually where we start because the Ascend framework is like once you're in the organization. But I feel like you have to do a whole bunch of stuff before you even enter the space. And I don't care if that space is your workplace. I don't care if that space is your marriage. I don't care if that space is your friendships, like whatever. You have to be flourishing internally. And I believe that is about activating, cultivating, and aligning a sound mind, a strong body, and a sage spirit. And it's like when you have that rhythm that you've developed, for those necessary resources for a sound mind, the essential routines for a strong body, and the ideal rituals for a sage spirit, then you can show up whole, intentional, energized, completely at peace and at joy, regardless of circumstance. And that
all the time. Yeah.
Optimal being absolutely is going to be catapulting you to like your next level up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all the stuff that I start to feel like a broken record. You know what I'm saying? And when I first started Palette, I was like, you know what? We can't separate these two, like the personal development from the professional development. You have to do these things together, especially when you're focusing on women, because we bring all of our baggage to the table, to the office, to the career, to the business. It's just impossible not to acknowledge that, like, we need to manage that also, in addition to, you know, the goal setting on the career side of things. So in my own experience, it wasn't until I started to really invest in myself. And I can remember in the beginning, it was like, I felt selfish doing it. I felt like I didn't deserve it. And, you know, but I had gotten to this point, even with like just with Paint and Sip, it's like I had 3 locations. I was like, we were doing really, really good. And I still just wasn't like content. And,
you didn't have that S, right? You didn't have that full satisfaction.
Yes. And, you know, it really is difficult to figure that out on your own. I think that that's the other piece of it. It's like, I was meeting with somebody earlier today and she was just like, I just can't figure it out. Yeah, exactly. Because you're going after it by yourself. So like, if you would just bring other people along for the ride, be honest about what you're struggling with and allow people to support you, it's definitely more effective use of your time and brain energy to do the things that you need to do to advance. And then of course for me, it's like, it is more fun to do things in group settings with lots of people.
Right. No, I agree 100%. And I think that is like the whole working smarter, not harder actually cannot happen without being in community. Like you cannot maximize your ability to do what you set out to do without having other people. It's not, again, I always say these things like with the optimized framework, like I'm like, can you be successful over here in the workplace and not be taking care of yourself fully in this space? Sure. But if this is how well you're performing without having this over here, just imagine what would happen over here if you really were taking care of yourself. And one of the things that I always love about you and how you show up in the world is, and I think we both kind of do this is intentionally showing like all the like badass things that we're doing, but also showing all those like mom moments, those like just being a woman moments, and saying like, yes, these things all happen at like, and they're feeding each other, right? Like I think one of the things that allows me to do all the crazy that I do is because I've had to figure it out being the head of, you know, the female head of a household over here in this space. So it's why like LinkedIn, right? Like put the whole like stay-at-home mom thing as a title now, because people are recognizing like that actually comes with a certain set of skills and a certain set of value propositions that make you better in both spaces, right? Like I am a better leader because I'm a mom, and I'm also a better mom because I'm a leader, right? Like in the spaces that I am in the workplace.
No, I say this all the time. It's so much easier. For me personally, it's easier to go to work, you know, because I mean, I just like, I can't be home with all my kids all at the same time. I love them dearly. I really, really do. But the time away from them makes me love them more when I'm with them. And
makes the heart grow fonder.
It's just like, it's relentless when you're home with them all day. I just don't know. I can't do that. I'm aware that I can't do that. I am not my best version of myself anywhere in life if I'm staying at home with my kids all day. You know, whatever, if I get shit for it, it's just the truth. I'm like, my kids are better off in someone else's care during the day and with other kids.
To the point where you're like, I have no patience and now I'm yelling at you and it's really not your fault because you're just being a kid, but also I need a minute. I need to invest in myself.
Right. And the flip side of that is like, I absolutely am enamored and fascinated by stay-at-home moms who manage to still have like really socially capable children, and they're doing all the things. It's just like, that's not my thing. And so I don't know, I'm always sharing like, you know, the under the hood, if you will. There's like 100%. A lot going on, and it's not perfect by any means. I mean, there
progress over perfection.
I also say done is better than perfect. Like at the end of the day, I mean, I'll be the first to beat the hell out of myself over like, well, I fed the kids crap and I didn't call that person back, or, you know, I was snarky to so-and-so, you know, and it's like, I'll just beat myself up. And it's like, what use is that, you know? And then I reset by saying like, the kids are fed. They are not, their bellies are full. They are in a safe place. And, you know, they're all going to bed. You know, it's just like, you have to celebrate the very, very, very small wins sometimes.
Yeah, I totally get that. Hashtag recovering perfectionist. But you know how what will really get you to work on your perfectionist ways is entrepreneurship. Like if you are an entrepreneur and you literally cannot afford to be a perfectionist in entrepreneurship, because you will starve to death, because you will do nothing, because nothing is good enough, and you won't actually just go out there. And the reality is, we know growth mindset, right? We know that you have to kind of fail forward, right? Like if you're not failing, you're probably either not aiming for big enough things, right? Or you're not trying to get innovative and creative in the space that you are. So,
and you're not taking even one step forward, you know? So I was just talking to Jen Peters about this. She's life coach, member of Palette. I don't know if you've met her yet, but she was just on, and we were talking about how some people just, they cannot even make that first call to get help. They can't even call to make the appointment with the therapist. They can't call to make an appointment with the coach, you know, because their feelings, they're just so down. And it's those people that they just don't know what they're missing, you know? And I don't know if any of this is resonating with anybody, but I'm with you. It's very difficult to make that first call. But my goal is to never get that low, you know, and surrounding yourself people who are going to call you out on that. You know what I'm saying? Like if we don't see you for a while around Palette and you come here every day, or we see you often, you just have clearly gone into a hole. It's like, hey, Christina, where are you? I need a wellness check and I need a proof of life.
Right. I love that.
So tell me what you have going on. Like if somebody wanted to work with you tomorrow, obviously they could contact you, but you have you have a mastermind coming up. Yeah.
I do have a mastermind. So the mastermind that I have coming up right now is what I call my Fortune Framework from Reverie to Roadmap mastermind. It is really like a soup to nuts program where this is for entrepreneurs. I would say it's designed most ideally for somebody who has some sort of a business and is trying to level it up. Theoretically, though, I have had people start the program kind of from ground zero, like they're still at a W-2 and are building this on the side until they can flip-flop it. But we start with helping them to create a signature framework. Like I said, I have my soul leadership model. I have my 2 optimize and ascend frameworks. So these are my proprietary ideas. Can you get certified in somebody else's thing? Sure. But what if you became the certifying body? Like my ultimate goal someday, somewhere down the road, is there'll be like a soul leadership certification that you can get, and you can do your own coaching or you can bring it into your organization. So I help folks create a signature framework. Then from that signature framework, we think about how would your signature framework transfer into a signature program. So whether that's a course or some other type of offering that kind of gives that foundational view and elements of what it is that you do. But because it's just foundational, there have to be deeper dive offers. And so that's what kind of helps you to get scale and sustainability, right? So the arrows are going to work in both directions. And then from there, we also start thinking about like, who would you sell this to? Because sometimes there is there's a ladder of people between you and the buyer, and you don't always have access immediately to that buyer. So how do you navigate that space? We do a thing around pricing. I mean, technically you can charge whatever you want to charge, but it's good to have it rooted in some, I have a little math equation. So it's malleable. You can shape it however you want, but it does help you to come up with like what makes sense as some baseline pricing. And
that's gonna give, like, I'm sorry to cut you off, but that's gonna give the person more confidence when they're telling somebody this is what it costs. You know, if you're just picking it out of nowhere, it's you do bring that.
That's when you don't have confidence. That's when you're like, I think it's kind of maybe, but if you don't want to, it's okay. You know, like, no. And I've had to do this, especially like if you are somebody who came from a service-based industry or field, like educators, we are indoctrinated. You do everything for free. You do everything just because. And I want to do things for free. And I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I do things for free, but I can only do that if other people are paying me enough somewhere else that I can still show up. I have the bandwidth to show up in that space and still be able to feed my family and all of that good stuff. So we go over the pricing, and then sort of like the PA de Resistance is you get a 3-tier proposal template that you create for yourself that you can kind of plug and play as you need to with different people who will come in. But that way, the goal is for you to sell an offering before you even leave the program, because we have a couple of weeks at the end where you're just like refining and doing different stuff. And so if you're doing the work sort of along the way, you will do that. And I did.
And you'll get your help. And
yeah, the majority,
your feedback, your immediate live coaching and
yes, because I want you, my goal is I want you to not only make your money back, but I want you to see a return on investment in what you do with me. I'll just share 2 quick wins. My big Mammer Jammer win is I helped a former teacher turned she was a former engineer turned teacher turned SAT ACT test prep tutor. She has her own tutoring company, brick and mortar. She's outside of Chicago. While we were working together, she had this other opportunity that came up for higher ed, and she basically took her framework, white labeled it with them to apply in this college setting. And she was able to secure a $210,000 contract with them for a 9-month piece of work. And then she's getting $30,000 every year in perpetuity of that institution existing on January 1st. And that's because she has her intellectual capital. I had another person who she was working full-time in a municipality. She's actually in Canada. So her goal was, she was like, I want to do my business full time. And so before she left the program, she was able to get like, I think it was a high 4-figure, her first, gig or whatever. And then about 2 months later, I think 2 or 3 months later, she was able to secure a more substantive 5-figure deal that actually allowed her to walk away from the W-2 job and just go straight full-time into it. So like, these are the things that are possible. I have had, like I said, I have traditional kind of coaches and consultants, but I had this SAT, like brick and mortar person. I had a chiropractor who's done the program with me, former preschool directors. Like, there's a million and one ways that people can work with me. And this is one of my more exciting ones, because I feel like it really does it gives you such a strong foundation. And then you have the community also besides just me, because I do think you learn just as much from the other people and what you're doing. And you did.
So when does that start? How long does it take? What's the commitment?
September 19th is a Monday. That's the start of it. And it will end on November 19th, which is the 10th Monday. So it's actually going to be like 5 weeks of actual instruction, if you will. And there'll be like some mini videos that you watch in advance, so that the hour that we have together each week can be like almost like hot seat office hours, real-time feedback. And then the remaining 4 weeks is going to be allowing you, again, just office hours where you can refine if there was something in the previous weeks that was a little bit more challenging for you and you want to tweak it or whatever. We'll have like enough time, so it's almost double. And then that 10th week, on that 10th session, I want us to celebrate, and I want everybody to have like an opportunity to do like a quick pitch, and then get, the feedback from the other people in the mastermind. So,
awesome. And you launch this, if you are in this mastermind, you launch it within the 10 weeks.
You can, like, you don't have to, but the idea is, because we're getting through all of the content in the first 5 weeks, I would say by 6th or 7th, you theoretically could launch something, and then depending on how, what you're trying to do, like you might already have some warm contacts, or if you've already built a business and you have people, like it's a little bit faster to do that. But even for some of the ones who have started from ground zero, like they're already making headway, you know? So it might take them the 15th week. It could take them the 27th week, but I know that it will take you, I know you will get there faster than if you were just plugging away, trying to watch YouTube videos and figuring out everything on your own, to your point.
Yeah, exactly. And then they're in your community or your group, to your Facebook group or something, that they're in there like indefinitely?
Yeah, so
or is it?
I do have, I'll plug this too. So I have something called Prep and Prosper. It's a private Facebook group and it is for entrepreneurs. It gives them like a brave space to if you don't know, I love acronyms. So the PREP is for plan, refine, employ, and promote. So any of those 4 stages you might be in like designing an offer or selling an offer, you can get feedback. You can also just share like, oh, this is my podcast. Like we had somebody who was like, I need to get to 1,000 in order to be able to start making money off my YouTube channel. And she was like, whatever number away. And she put her thing in the group and enough of us like hit subscribe. And now she can start to monetize her YouTube channel. So it's just a great space for that. So rather than having 1,000,001 groups, I'm like, there's things that I'll be doing there in that space. And then, yes, I'll have like another private one for like just us who are in the group, but I'll do a lot of things to feed into there because then other people can learn more and hopefully gain from it. And then maybe later on be in another mastermind cohort. So
I love it. I love it. I mean, where do you get like the energy and like just the momentum from to just keep going, you know, because I think that's a challenge for a lot of people once they or they fear like what happens when, like, what if you run out of ideas, or what if you don't know what to do next, you know? It's like, where do you find that?
Yeah, again, like the whole soul leadership, like if you have those 4 elements, like O is the second element, right? Like that optimism, that belief, the belief, it's a decision, right? Like it doesn't cost money to have optimism. It you know, like, yes, you can invest in somebody to help you have more optimism and to have that mindset shift. But like, ultimately, I believe in these things. And I also have this belief that like, if you have a dream, I believe that was like placed in your heart for a reason, and that everything else is conspiring for you to do that thing. And I think also, I am a recovering not only perfectionist, but I'm a recovering like type A, like gotta make it happen. Like I'm like the 5-year-old who had a 5-year plan, like every 5 years until like yesterday. And it's I used to be that person. If like I set out a goal, I'm doing everything that I need to get there and it's not happening, I am banging down that door. I am making my way into there. And I have just learned, and probably in these last 5 years of entrepreneurship, I have come to have like a totally different mentality. It's like, forget hustle and grind. I'm all about flow and ease. And it's not about working, like being afraid of work or being lazy or complacent. It's about trusting that if I am doing my due diligence on something and it is not working, then that's not for me. It's either not for me at all, or it's just not for me at this time. And so it's like, again, going back to that, if you trust that what's for you is for you, if you believe your blessings cannot bypass you, right? Like they are yours, they are already claimed. And so if I now run into that where I'm like, wow, it's like, we had the conversation, I said all the right things, they seem to be really interested. And then all of a sudden it's like, there's a ghosting or there's like a lull. I'm like, I don't absorb it anymore. I'm not like, well, what do I need to do to make that? No, I'm like, I guess it's not a priority for them right now. That's okay. That means God is universe, whatever you want to call source, is creating space for the right person to come in. And now I will have my full ability to capture their attention and to devote myself in service to them. And so it's to me, all of that is mindset. And I think the energy part is like, I get fired up about not just my goals and dreams. Like the reason why this entrepreneurial, this mastermind literally came organically. I had no intention of selling any type of offerings around this until I started recognizing that I had a skill set in this that other people didn't have and needed. And I would say my entrepreneurial consulting is the closest I feel to how I felt when I was in a classroom. Like it lights me up because I'm like, it's like my students, right? And I'm seeing them really discover their own zone of genius and leaning into that and figuring out how they can create this life. And like, that is exciting. Like when that girl got her $210,000 contract, you would have thought I didn't get a cut of that. I literally didn't see, other than her initial like payment to me for the program. But I was like, this is amazing. Like this is game changing. She literally made more in that one deal than she does almost in a full year. Like I was like, that's insane. And she now can do that. And now and she's like the mother of 4 boys and like, and she's literally salt of the earth. And my Canadian person, she's the salt of the earth. Like and that's the thing. I work with amazing people. Like I love it. And I think
that's who you attract though. That is who you attract because that is what you put out into the world. And I have had so many situations where like, it just was not a good fit. You know what I mean? And it's like, we were talking about this yesterday. I'm like, this is divine intervention. Exactly. I'm like, we were just talking about this yesterday, how it's like, you know what? I got to just put those people in a bucket because they're never coming for me and I'm never coming for them. And we should never, ever work together because it is just not ever going to work out. And that's okay.
That's okay. Yeah, that's the part, right? And it's okay. Like, I am not for all people. I had somebody recently ask me, why do people feel threatened by you? And I was like, you know what? It sounds like a them problem. Like, like I can't absorb that because there was a time in my life where I would have mulled over that and been like, why do they feel that way? Like, is it this, is it that? And it's like, I'm so in my lane and I have my blinders on for like what I'm here and called to do. And it's like, I don't have time for that. I wish them well. I pray blessings over them. Like it's just, but I ain't nobody got time for that. I don't have time for that. And they quite frankly, they don't have time for that.
And honestly, I just think it's actually quite fun to be able to like truly recognize when that's happening. And it's like, look, I got somebody else looking out for me and we don't have time for you. So, or vice versa, And I think it's like, once you get into that, you're aware of it and you start to like recognize it. It's like, it's such a flex. I love it. I'm like, oh yeah, no, we don't work together. We would never be able to work together or whatever it is, and it's like, there is somebody out there for everybody. And I'm certainly not for everybody. I mean, I've been told, and I know for a fact that you've been told this too, right? Like you're too much, you're too intense, you're intimidating. You just like, you're all over the place. I'm like, I'm actually right exactly where I need to be.
Yeah, agreed. Like, I feel like that is just, it's like, it's a you problem. Like I can't, and I have to say, like, have you ever done your Clifton Strengths?
No, what is that?
It's, Gallup poll does it. It's 34 strengths that you can have. And you take a little quiz and they give you the order of, so like your top 5 is like your strongest, like really the top 10 though is like what you work, like that's, you really want to leverage those strengths. And then it'll tell you like the bottom ones, like you either going to probably have to delegate that or whatever. But the thing is, my number 2 Clifton strength, I'll give you my 5. So my top one is futuristic. So like being able to like see the future, have that vision. Number 2 is woo, which is winning others over. 3 is communication, obviously former English teacher. 4 is self-assurance. And then 5 is positivity. So I don't know if my self-assurance rubs people the wrong way, but it's not like, oh, I think I'm great and I'm better than you. It's like, I think I'm great and I think you're great and we're all great and we should just be like great together. But the woo in me, which is number 2, the winning others over, like my best friend and my business partner always like teasing me. She's like, you cannot, like, you get so upset when you don't win somebody over. Cause I'm like, how are, like, we just must not have, like, we must just not have had enough time together. Like, I'm like, how could you not want, like, I'm here for you. Like, I want, like, and so, like, yeah, like, I kind of do have a visceral reaction to, like, if I find out somebody, like, doesn't like me or, like, doesn't want, and I'm like, really?
Like, I'm awesome. I am awesome. What don't you like? You don't like that I'm
all of this around you. Like, I guess if you want to be miserable and steeped in your own whatever, like, sorry, But
I love it. I love it. I mean, and I think that that's like we have a lot of similarities. That sometimes that I just can't comprehend what somebody doesn't understand, like what they don't get about me, like and it's like a conundrum that I have to figure out.
Yes. I bet Woo is somewhere in your top 10.
Oh, definitely. You know what this reminds me of is and I know like we're so over time right now.
I know. I was just looking at
I at Peyton Sip, I think this is like such a example of Woo and me is like men will come into Peyton Sip with like being dragged in by their wives or their significant others, whatever, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna paint. I'm just here for her, this is just like this is for her, and then by the end of the night,
20 minutes later, and they're like this.
Like, no, it's got to be like this, they have to make it perfect or whatever. And I think it is so much fun at the end of the night. I know that I have wooed them when they're like, oh, we can't wait to come back. Do you see this masterpiece? It's great, and it's just like they've completely taken the experience over.
Yes,
they're having so much fun. And I just love to say that. And the meatier, the muscular, the more manly the man, the more artistic they are.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It's like,
there's some sort of ratio, like,
yes. It's so much fun. And I like to woo those people. And then I also like to woo, I call them the shark women of Saratoga, like this, yeah. They're like, oh, they wear white pants to paint and sip, which is like such come on, you're in a paint studio. And they're worried about paint being on the glass. And I'm like, that's occupational hazard. You're in a paint studio. Right. And by the end of the night, it's like their hair is falling down and their shoulders are loose and they're just like having a great time. And they've like forgotten the facade of like what they came in with, and it's just it's so transformative to see, and it's enjoyable to watch that happen.
I call those people wolves in sheep's clothing, or wolves in shark's clothing.
I love it. Well, I'm sure you have like tons of other places to be right now. I'm sorry I kept you over, but you just have so much wisdom to embark on us, and I appreciate you giving us your time. So if people want to get into this mastermind, go to the website. Is it on the website?
Come to the website. They can link. I haven't officially sent out my thing into the larger world, but yes, they can reach out to me, and then I will get them the link that they need to get to learn more information or to register.
Yeah, and preppies they could join like now.
Yeah, preppies you can join right now. P.R.E.P. and Prosper. Prep and Prosper.
I love it. Awesome. You can find Christina everywhere. She's on LinkedIn. She is on Facebook. She's on the Instagram. She's at her website is headhearthandsconsulting.com. You can find her at Padlet. And she's also, wait a minute. Put down the phone.
Oh, yes, we were at September 14th, right?
Yes.
They would have gotten so mad at me. Like, you had an audience. Like, tell them.
You had an audience of one person, but people watch the replay.
Yeah. Women at work, right? Women at work. It's going to be me. Oh my gosh, why am I forgetting the Kiara. She's going to be there, and the third person's name I can't remember because we don't know each other in real life yet, but I'm very excited to see her too.
And this is the Women at Work breakfast, right? With Times Union Media Center. Yeah. It's in person. It's at the Times Media. Is it at the media center?
No, it's like where the Times Union, like near the library, the Hearst Media Center, whatever.
Got it. Okay, cool. Well, you can find this. Where can they find the link to register? On your LinkedIn or
it's on my LinkedIn and it's on my Facebook somewhere, but LinkedIn is probably the easiest to find. Yeah. And I think Times Union Women at Work just tagged me in something on Facebook today, and my Facebook is public, so
awesome. Yes. So get a ticket for that. I'm so excited. I can't be there, which I'm so sad about. So I'm going to make sure Marcella's there so she can like record it and stuff. Because it's going to be dope. After I spoke at the Women at Work breakfast, it was just so much fun. That's when I really felt
I go to it even when I'm not on the panel. I love it. Like they're great women. It's a great activity. Usually I'm late, so this is going to be awkward. I have to be there on time because I'm actually talking. So
yes, you're the program, so don't be late.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it was great talking with you. See you soon.
All right.
Last week. Hopefully this week I'll see you.
The last balance of your day, everyone.